The Automated Podcast.
Welcome to Automated. I'm Mark Verbenkov, and this, of course, is the podcast exploring the impact of technology on jobs. And this week, we're going to be looking a little bit at creativity, art, and entertainment, and how automation and technology is impacting that. So in my conversations over the years with people about technology and automation, one of the kind of go-to domains that most people say that automation will never impact is that of art, creativity, and entertainment. So I wanted to look at that a little bit today. So I think that creativity is pretty much argued by everybody to be quite important, yet depending on who you're talking to, you'll probably get different reasons. So for an artist, it could be a way of expression or even to find meaning. For those in research or business, it can be a new way of looking at a problem or a question which generates some new results, or even having that moment of epiphany. And for archaeologists, it has been argued that creativity was one of the great drivers of human progress and is perhaps the essential aspect that makes humans special compared to all other forms of life on Earth. So it's really no wonder then that creativity is often seen as simultaneously something very important and that the world of automation and robots could or should never touch. So one of the first things I wanted to look at was automation within music. And automation in music really isn't such a terribly new idea. So the pianola, or player piano, made popular in the old Western movies, were the self-playing pianos that were controlled by large rolls of paper that had holes punched into them, instructing the piano which keys to strike at which time. This is essentially an early programmed song. But I think that more impactful still was the phonograph, which was invented by Thomas Edison in the late 1800s. And this enabled people for the very first time ever to hear recorded music. Up until then, all music listened to was live. So though live music today is still the more enjoyable way of listening, the lifestyle improvement and enjoyment that all of us get from listening to music whenever and wherever we are cannot really be overvalued. But one step beyond this pre-recording of music comes from an interesting example in Japan. So the Z Machines were a rock band that featured 3 robots. The drummer Ashura even had 21 drumsticks that enabled it to play 4 times faster than any human, and the lead guitarist had 2 guitars. And this was a band that was entirely made of robots. There were no humans playing up on stage. So though the band, or the robots, were pre-programmed, it could actually jam harder by reacting to the crowd's level of engagement. This was measured or found through simple sensors as well as online interaction. And of course, I'll have a video and links in the show notes if you want to see what this robot band actually looked like when they were playing. However, things have already been taken one step further. So back in episode 3, I briefly referenced that AI is one of the chief technologies that is already capable of producing creative works. So Aiva AI is music that's purely composed by an AI program, and it can compose music in multiple predefined styles, including rock, jazz, pop, and a number of other ones. Its first album, called Genesis, which released back in 2016, is actually recognized by a French music society, SECAM. And this is perhaps the point where you might start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Whereas with the piano player or even the robot band, a human still needed to program all the music behind the scenes, as it were. But with this AI program, no human creativity is required to generate the art form once the algorithm has been sufficiently trained or learned how to actually produce the music. So the same is actually being experienced with other art forms like painting. Professor Ahmed Elgammal of the Art and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at Rutgers University has spent some 5 years teaching his artificial intelligence programs to create original artwork. So Elgammal fed the software some 80,000 pieces of art from the last 500 years. And after pressing the enter key, the software creates new original works. And in fact, artificial intelligence art is now being recognized as a new genre of art. So recently, one piece of art, titled The Portrait of Edmund Bellamy, was sold at an auction for over $400,000. If you want to see exactly what this blurry image of a man looks like, I'll have a link in the show notes as usual. So though it is argued that this is just a continuation of artists using tools and machines to enhance their creative process, I think that the important part here is that these algorithms actually generate new images. And even more importantly, they're getting better at it every single day. We also see other technology blending into this and being used by other creatives. In 2018, there were 2 digital artists that showcased an augmented reality art exhibition entitled Mirages and Miracles, where artwork was enhanced by having motion enabled into every single piece. So by viewing these images through different equipment like VR headsets, different sort of AR glasses, or even iPads, the art pieces came to life. And really any description here that I try to do won't do it justice. But again, there's a link in the show notes where you can see kind of a short trailer where some of the art pieces are seen as they're really intended to be shown. And as I've been trying VR for the past few months, if you know of any current or upcoming mixed reality art exhibits that you've been to or can recommend, please let me know, as I wouldn't mind checking one out. So that's a brief look at music as well as painting, but what about writing? So it can really be argued that the written word has been impacted as far back as the 1400s with the Gutenberg printing press, which perhaps was the main catalyst for the scientific revolution, enlightenment, and even the modern age, by really giving the average citizen access to great thinkers and new ideas, which I think really undermined the institutions of religion as well as the monarchy, which was really holding control over the population through limited education. So you can also argue that writing was again impacted with the move to our digital reality, where the replication and the ability to share information radically grew. But the words written were always those of human thought, be it for information or for art. However, today we're seeing the emergence of non-human writing. So automated journalism, where an algorithm quickly generates a report by scanning thousands of sources, has already been used by media organizations across the world, such as Forbes, the Los Angeles Times, as well as the Associated Press. But this is generally highly focused on pre-programmed structures, where details are simply inserted from the large amount of scanned data. But in 2018, the first published fiction novel written entirely by an AI was put out there. So titled One the Road, it describes the journey of Ross Goodwin, who had the AI in a laptop with him connected to a number of sensors as well as microphones, which recorded and then subsequently wrote the journey he took from New York to New Orleans. So though no coherent plot or story is actually recognized, and the book was mainly published as a learning exercise, there are now other projects which have novels constantly written by AI that's improving all the time. So most notably, there's an AI called the GPT-2 from Elon Musk's backed OpenAI business, was claimed to be able to produce fiction as well as news stories all by itself. However, only a scaled down version of this was released, but the text generating algorithm is improving, and there are fears that over the next few years, it will improve to the point of being able to generate full-length novels that will be indistinguishable from human authors. So the same is being done with poetry. You can go to Poem Portraits, where Google's poem algorithm will generate a unique poem from a single word that you feed it. There are both meaningless as well as profound examples, but I'll post a link in the show notes if you want to try and decide for yourself. I tried it a few times and got some mixed results. So technology and entertainment, however, is also on a track to compete with live actors. Back in 1995, the American computer-animated film Toy Story was the first entirely computer-animated feature film. Since then, there are well over 150 full-feature films, with more coming out every single year that are completely computer-animated. Several of these have actually been high-grossing, making well over $1 billion each. And though these computer-generated characters are not overtaking live-action films anytime soon, we are starting to see a new similar trend, that of the digital actor. So contrary to the CGI films where it is evident that the entire environment and all of its characters are fake, digital actors are starting to blur the lines. So notably in 2017's Blade Runner, a character from the original 1982 film was made to look the exact same. as if she hadn't aged over the 35 years. Of course, this was done using special effects. So technicians were able to scan her head and skull. Then they used footage from the actress from the older film to build a younger face around her scanned head. They then rearranged audio from her old performances and made her look 35 years younger. So this trend actually began a few decades earlier to cut costs of the large budget films. Previously, hundreds of extras were needed to generate big crowds, but today the technology is able to generate a stadium full of some 50,000 people where only 200 of them need to be real. Of course, this is having a real negative impact on the need of extras, and it's not impossible to think that in the years coming up, there might not be any need for any extras. So furthermore, the same technology is able to resurrect actors who are no longer alive. So in 2016's Star Wars Rogue One, a character was brought back whose actor had been dead for some 20 years. Though there was some controversy as to the quality of the resurrected digital actor, it's nevertheless an impressive feat. So these digital effects are also being used in other mediums. For example, though he was killed in 1996, in 2012, a hologram of Tupac performed live at Coachella next to Snoop Dogg. Though the holographic performance stunned many with its quality and lifelike appearance, only 2 songs were performed. However, now there are a number of companies launching that will put on entire live holographic performances of deceased American actors and performers. So a few examples here are Roy Orbison, Buddy Holly, who are already available to see, while Whitney Houston and Amy Winehouse are scheduled to quote-unquote perform in early 2020. Though it is challenging to generate both the holographic and the digitally rendered versions of actors in the past, currently there are some performers who are spending millions on digitally preserving themselves within digital archives. So through full body scans, how your face works, every expression you make, your voice, and even your wardrobe can be fully archived. And the prediction is that future full-length films and performances will continue to be made well after some of the top-tier artists have passed away. So I think finally, I just wanted to end on a conclusion that I found that I think perfectly encapsulates what many of us are thinking as we come across these examples. But it also connects the positive lessons that can be learned from working with AI that I mentioned last week. So here's the quote. "These works of art are just a glimpse into the breadth of the creative works being generated by algorithms and machines. Many of us will rightly fear these developments. We have to ask ourselves what our role will be in an era where machines are able to perform what we consider complex, abstract, creative tasks. The implications on the future of work, education, and human societies are profound. At the same time, some of these works demonstrate that AI artists may not necessarily represent a threat to human artists, but rather an opportunity for us to push our creative boundaries. The most exciting artistic creations involve collaborations between humans and machines. We have always used our technological scaffolding to push ourselves beyond our biological limitations. We use the telescope to extend our line of sight, planes to fly, and smartphones to connect with others. Our machines are not always working against us, but rather working as an extension of our minds. Similarly, we could use our machines to expand our creativity and push the boundaries of art." So that's it for today, and as I mentioned last week, this is going to be the last episode of 2019. So I'll be back in mid-January and shift the focus of the episodes more towards the overall impact of automation rather than on the specific technologies. So I hope you've enjoyed the podcast up until now. If you have, please leave a review as always, or even just drop me a comment on Twitter or LinkedIn and I'd be happy to reply to you. So I hope you enjoy your holidays and see you guys in 2020.
The Automated Podcast.